As the nation marks Gun Violence Awareness Day, our long epidemic of gun violence continued this week. Fear struck thousands of health workers on a hospital campus in Tulsa, Oklahoma on Wednesday. There, authorities say a gunman armed with a newly purchased AR-15 rifle and a handgun killed 4 people before turning the gun on himself. A shocking attack made all the more shocking by where it took place, as the city's mayor told reporters yesterday.
This has been the facility more than any other that has worked to save the lives of people in this city. Think about in your own way what you can do to show your support for them in the midst of this tragedy.
Another day in America, another mass shooting. Literally. In fact, since 19 children and 2 teachers were killed at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas, less than 2 weeks ago, there have been at least 20 mass shootings in which at least 4 people were either killed or injured, according to the Online Gun Violence Archive. That is a total of 233 mass shootings in the year 2022. And we are not even halfway through the year, believe it or not. And those shootings account for just a fraction of the tens of thousands of gun deaths that happen in America every single year. But they grip us because they show how arbitrary life is in one nation under the gun, where anyone can be an innocent victim in a hospital, in a supermarket, in a house of worship, or even a school. A point President Joe Biden made in his address to the nation on Thursday.
Over the last 2 decades, more school-age children have died from guns than on-duty police officers and active-duty military combined. Think about that. More kids than on-duty cops killed by guns. More kids than soldiers killed by guns. For God's sake, how much more carnage are we willing to accept? How many more innocent American lives must be taken before we say enough, enough?
So what can be done about all of this? Well, listen, that all depends really on Senate Republicans, because for more than a decade, whether they have been in the majority or like now in the minority, the Senate GOP has consistently blocked gun reform legislation. They did it after Sandy Hook in 2012, after Charleston, San Bernardino in 2015, after the Pulse nightclub massacre in 2016, after the Las Vegas shooting in 2017, after Parkland in 2018, and after El Paso and Dayton in 2019, and the list goes on and on and on. And Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell says this time is different. He will consider legislative fixes, just not anything that addresses, guns.
Buffalo and Uvalde shootings underscore a problem we've seen over and over again over the last 30 years. Mental illness and school safety are what we need to target.
So McConnell's message probably helps explain why, instead of tackling the easy availability of, AR-15s being sold to teenagers, members of his caucus are clamoring for fewer doors in schools.
Don't have all of these unlocked back doors. Have one door into and out of the school, and have that one door armed police officers at that door.
So, while Senate Republicans like Backdoor Ted are doing everything they can to delay and distract, some local Republicans are telling them, do your jobs. More than 250 mayors from both parties signed onto a bipartisan letter Thursday calling on the Senate to pass 2 gun safety bills that were approved by the House more than a year ago. Those bills would mandate near universal background checks for guns, closing the so-called gun show loophole and making it easier for law enforcement to trace guns used in crimes. And the thing is, many of these same mayors weighed in with the same letter just 3 years ago. Back in 2019, they sent a letter urging senators to take up those same 2 bills after a different string of mass shootings. And here's what they said back then. Quote, the tragic events in El Paso and Dayton this weekend are just the latest reminders that our nation can no longer wait for our federal government to take the actions necessary to prevent people who should not have access to firearms from being able to purchase them. El Paso, 23 dead. Dayton, 10 dead. Remember them? That was 3 years ago, and literally more than 1,000 mass shootings ago. it's leaving many asking what, if anything, has changed now, and what more can be done by local officials to prevent more gun violence in their communities. Joining me now is Chris Brown, president of the gun safety organization Brady. Chris, thank you so much for making time for us. I greatly appreciate it. So both Republican and Democratic mayors have signed on to this effort to get the Senate to pass 2 House-approved background check bills, bills that I should note Republicans have shot down for years. What, if anything, is different now? Do you think things can be different in Washington this time around?
Well, look, thank you for having me on, and thank you for continuing your coverage on something that is an everyday occurrence in America. We have a mass shooting every single day. These mass shootings, while absolutely horrific, are not unique. And we have an epidemic. We lost 45,000 Americans to gun violence in 2020. That's the highest number on record for quarter century. So yes, I do think that things are different because our members of Congress react to public sentiment. It's just the way that it works. If you look back on the history of changes to our nation's laws around public safety, which is what anything related to gun violence prevention is, happened in 1934 because a huge number of people are shot with machine guns. Those were regulated. Happened in 1968 because JFK, RFK, MLK were all shot. So we had prohibited purchasers. Happened in 1993 thanks to Jim and Sarah, the founders of my organization, because we decided to mechanize that. We have this moment now, and it's because senators are under pressure. They don't want to go back to their districts and say to parents, I've not delivered something that could help protect your kids. And let's face it, the constituents across America know it's not about doors. It's sort of a ridiculous talking point. I don't know how they came up with it, but no one thinks that's serious. It is about the guns. The real issue is how much must we demand from the Senate and what can happen? I will tell you, I do feel good about the negotiations. They're closed door, and they should be, to put a package together that's comprehensive. I hope that that touches a lot of different aspects of gun violence, whether it is even in a narrow way, expanding Brady background checks, whether that is helping states move forward with extreme risk laws. Those are the laws that take guns away from individuals who are known and at risk, or safe storage, like Kristen and Mike Song have put forward, and that is part of the House package. I think those are the negotiations, from what I've heard, that are moving forward. Those are really important. There is no doubt that the administration will have to augment this with the 23 suggestions to this administration for executive actions that Brady has put forward. They will have to augment it. It takes all of government to fix this problem. It's a uniquely American problem.
No, it is uniquely American problem, and I know that you yourself have worked on local and youth programs, most notably after Parkland in 2018. Beyond whatever comes out of Washington, and I totally understand why Washington needs to take the lead on this, what can local governments, cities and counties be doing for themselves in their own communities on gun violence right now? I think a lot of people feel perhaps trapped if they wait for the federal government, that doesn't come, and the local governments are not willing to do something without a federal mandate or some kind of federal effort, because quite frankly, it doesn't matter if local law enforcement does background checks if that information can't be shared with other officials across state lines to be able to prevent somebody from buying a gun, transporting it across the state boundary, and shooting up somewhere else.
Thank you for that question. It's such an important one. It's not one solution. To fix this problem, like any public health epidemic, and that's what we have, it takes better laws at the federal and state level. It takes enforcement, and it takes social norm change. That's why Brady is focusing on all of these issues. What I will say in answer to your question is there's a ton of additional enforcement that can happen at the local level. We need local authorities and the ATF, that's the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, really focusing on the 5% of gun dealers in this country that are contributing to 90% of crime guns. We have a huge spike in homicides across this country. If we could get a lot of Americans focused by going to BradyUnited.org and understanding the role of crime guns in this, we could collectively reduce gun homicide. The other thing that we have to do is learn how to talk about safe storage with our friends, our family, and others. We hear from gun owners across the country, honestly, every single day. We have a problem in this country. We talk about pools, we talk about medicines in our home, we talk about risks to kids in our home. We don't talk about the guns, and the guns are creating the risk, both for unintentional injury of kids in the home. 8 kids a day, now practically 9, are killed or injured with a gun in the home, and 68% of all of gun deaths are suicide. We can cut down on that substantially through End Family Fire. Go to endfamilyfire.org. Find out how you can talk about this issue with your friends and family. This is like designated driver or secondhand smoke. It takes social norm change, and we can change policy, but social norm change around these issues actually, honestly, comes first.